Well, in the last video, I was trying to lift the motor out of the motor mounts. So now I'm getting the truck ready to move it up the road. So I'm putting the plugs back in, and I've cleaned up some, and we'll talk about the history, what's happened over the last several years that's brought this truck to this point. Well, me and this truck to this point. So I will say I've decided to rebuild the motor. I've decided to rebuild the motor in large part because, and it might be more expensive, but that's okay. In large part because December, what was it? 2019. December 2019, emotionally, I couldn't pull the dipstick. I couldn't handle the stress of pulling the dipstick. So and about 20 years ago, when I was about 20, well, more than 20 years ago, I've rebuilt the motor. So I have the knowledge, but emotionally I couldn't even manage to pull the dipstick. December 2019. So I've, like Peterson describes about being a monster, I'm gonna attack this head on, and I'm gonna rebuild the motor. Get past I'm past pulling the dipstick, but just to prove to myself that I can do this, even though I know I can. It's just so should put the plug wires back in, and then we'll close the hood up top. Oh, and there's these shields, these heat shields. I don't know that I really need to, but I don't want to lose them, so we'll just I'll put them inside. Okay, so what's happened over the last many years that's got us to this point? I'll go for a walk around the truck. While I was driving, and I don't remember, I really don't know, I'm second guessing myself, but I either drove 15,000 kilometers or 30,000 kilometers on one oil change. I don't remember, but and I've done that twice. During that time, the first time I went 15 or 30,000 kilometers on one oil change, I caught a bird in the grill, and I just took just a small little, hardly fit my hand in through the grill. During the about 1 week, 2 weeks, I was working. January 26th, February 2016. And driving to and from work, I did catch a bird in the front grill. And over the course of the next week, the rest of the, I showed up one day. I'd walked past my pickup and the front grill, and I could see that the grill was there and intact, and it was I don't know if it was about 5 kilometers to the job site, and in that distance, somewhere along the way I got to work, and the front grill had disappeared completely off the radar. So so that's what happened to the front grill. Now, next. I don't know where to start. It's all just a big mess. So let's keep talking about the front grill. The RCMP had kept me in court so much since January 2016, I knew I couldn't think straight. So much so, the the serpentine belt had come off the big rig. I was hauling logs, and that was too much stress for me to, and I forgot, like, I didn't really forget about it, I just don't think about it. But it was, I was under that much stress that I couldn't change the serpentine belt. I had to call my boss, and my boss had to drive out in the bush, and he had to put it back on for me. So I couldn't think straight, and I couldn't function, and I couldn't perform basic tasks like, well, for me that's used to be basic. Change the serpentine belt. My brain shut down and I just went to sleep. That's all I could hardly, it was exhausting for me to call my boss. And all I could do was sleep. Because that's how my brain handles stress. So by the time I got to about a year or two later, I don't remember exactly when it was, I was working in northern BC, and I was there, same kind of thing, about 3 weeks before I lost my job. And when I was leaving, I drove into one of those signs on the highway, like I don't want to call it a traffic sign, but more like a construction sign. And so surprisingly, it didn't do any damage to the hood, but you can see it did damage to the bumper, and that's when it cut the transmission oil cooler. And luckily I was driving on my way to Edmonton from Grand Prairie, well, from northern BC, but it was in Grand Prairie that I'd had this happen, where I hit a construction sign. So what I did is I took because the oil cooler was cut, I took the lines into the oil cooler and the lines out of the oil cooler, and I plugged them together so that it would circulate. And it was about spring or so, and it was about spring, and it was cooler, and I was leaving Grand Prairie in the evening, and so I drove at about, I want to say 30, but it was probably more along the lines of 50 and 80 kilometers an hour, just to drive it slow, not to overheat the transmission. And luckily I was through the night, and I got into Edmonton in the morning, and I drove straight into Pick and Pull, or Pick Your Parts, on the northwest end of Edmonton. And I just had enough money to buy odds and ends, and this is what I bought, these here parts. There's a few more parts I bought, but there's one oil cooler. This one here I already had. I bought 2 other oil coolers and this oil filter. Here's another oil cooler here I bought, and I've used this oil cooler in the front as well. So this is one of the oil coolers I put in the front, and you can see the duct tape there. It's actually military gun tape. But I'd also used this in front of the Rada at that time. And the other oil cooler, the bigger one there, already had it in storage. So I just, this one here was bought from a store. I had it in storage. So when I got a chance, I plumbed it in. And this is now my transmission oil cooler. And I've added an oil filter, and a lot of that is just because I didn't have the money to buy the proper hoses. And so here's part of the hose. So once I got money to spare, I'll be able to buy the proper hoses and plumb it in properly. So that reminds me, I gotta take some pictures of that oil cooler for a buddy. So when I rebuild this, I'm gonna rebuild the bumper as well, and the headlights. I'm gonna move the headlights. I'll put one headlight here, one here, and then 2 down in the bumper, and the whole front end will change. I'm gonna purposefully change the whole front end. So then what? So then one of the worst things I did was, well, along the way, during the last like 5 years or so, like from 2015 through about spring 2019, during that time I've burnt Varsol as fuel, and Varsol loosely, but it was old gas that smelled like Varsol. Yeah, and one time I had about, I don't know if it was $5 or $10, but I knew it wasn't enough to get me up the street. And I had about half of a 5-gallon pail of transmission oil. And I knew that transmission oil burns, and it was, so what I ended up doing was I put about $5 worth of gas in the pail of transmission oil to mix it that way, and then I dumped that into my fuel tank in a way to stretch my fuel. And yeah, that's how kind of poor I was. And so what can I say? Well, while I was driving that like that, it was a little well, the tank was already low on fuel, like I couldn't get across Edmonton. So so that's what I did to get across Edmonton. And during that drive, it was coughing and burping and idling rough. And and then the next, so by the next chance I had money to spare to fuel up, what I did was driving to the gas station, I did top it up with gas, and again it really didn't want to start, but eventually it I don't know how to describe it, but it started anyway, and then it took a little while for it to kind of clear up. But that's one thing I did to stretch my gas money. I just thought of another example of what I did to stretch my gas money after the Fort McMurray forest fire evacuation. I did get some fuel cards from the Red Cross and from friends and people, and so now all of this was packed full, so there wasn't a lot of space and whatnot, and the console here was might have had like sweaters and shoes, things like that. And at one point I lost one of the fuel cards, and I don't know how it got behind there. I don't remember the details, but at one point one of the fuel cards went in behind the dash, so I figured I'd save it there for an emergency, and that's exactly when I needed to do that. At one point I was thin on cash, and I needed to drive across the city, so knowing that it was somewhere behind the dash, I started digging around, and so I broke all of this away. I couldn't really tear it apart properly, but I figured I'd start with this because I didn't have a lot of options. Luckily, I don't remember exactly where it was, but it was somewhere in here. Just like, can't make it up. Can't explain it. Like, it just super lucky. So somehow the card was up in here, and I just broke away enough pieces that I was able to get the fuel card. So I just kept it there in case of an emergency, and yeah, so like a savings account. So not very, how do you call it, exciting, but that's just part of the struggle. And so what else can I don't know, that's about it. Well, there's lots more, but I don't know what else to say. So I'm gonna keep about this oil cooler setup. But I'm gonna change the headlights completely and move them, and I'm gonna build my own front grille and front bumper. And now here's something else to talk about. Maybe is these tires here. They're just I don't know if you can see that, but there's like no tread. The mechanic said he wouldn't be allowed to let it leave without new rubber. Here's a tire plug. I don't really see any more, but somewhere along the way, this might be another tire plug, but somewhere along the way I ended up with several tire plugs in one tire. And I'm gonna say that all the tires are like that. This is one of them. This is maybe the better one out of the bunch, out of the original tread, let's call it that. Keeping in mind, I don't know how many weeks or months I worked in the last since 2015, but I really didn't work a lot, and so I really couldn't afford to drive it, and so those are the, I'm gonna say, original treads from 2015. And the little bit I drove it, I shouldn't say a little bit, but the little bit I drove it, that's what it's wore the tires down to. So this is another one here. So again, it's pretty low, and somewhere along the way, I can't remember what happened, but I ended up getting a flat, and I was lucky. Welfare was able to buy me some tires. So this is one of the tires I picked up from the scrapyard, and yeah. So and I don't remember if this is 10 ply or, but I think it's, I don't know if it's rated for less or as much as I have. But 16-inch rim. But I need a 10 ply anyway, and so anyway, now right, so what I did is I remember now, the tire shop I'd bought 2 of these, and I had both of them on the rear, and that's one of the ones that was on the rear, that tire there. And this winter, when I picked up the truck from where it was in storage, abandoned, the inside wall is blown out in 2 places. So when I changed the tire this spring, I I put what I kept as my spare, this one being my spare, went underneath the truck. And what was supposed to be a good tire ended up blowing out. And that reminds me, I just remembered one of them. I don't know if it's this one. One of them has a tire plug in the sidewall. I don't see a tire plug in this sidewall. And I think it's on the outside. For whatever reason, the tire shop didn't catch it. Yeah, this is the one. I just seen my plug. So I'm just rotating this a little bit. So this here, I bought it like that. I didn't catch it when I bought it from the scrapyard. And the tire shop didn't catch it when they put it on the truck. But I think that's not allowed. So anyway, yeah, it's just one thing on top of another. So I think that's got about everything. Now let me see if I can manage this somehow. There we go. Okay. So for some time this was my home. Yeah, for a while, on and off, and you do what you can when you can with what you have. But oh, I just remembered. Right, there we go, that's what I was looking for. This is for, well, I'm going to use it for my dishwasher. So I can hook up the dishwasher to the sink. So I'm going to need one of these, what you call it? I'm going to need something to hook up into here. So that's that. These water hoses, I think will help me hook up my dishwasher to my sink. That's propane, that's electric, and that's enough of that. So, oh, right, I forgot about this tool cable. I might need this to move the truck here right away. So let's see if I can put this down for a second. I think I'll need that to tow my pickup. So I was thinking earlier I should film something with the bus. Talk a little about the bus, but I'm not sure what I should talk about right now. But I think that about covers everything with the truck. So I don't know what else to say about the truck. Well, okay, so I had a trucking business by winter and a landscaping business by summer, and I had landscaping decals on the truck, and I was always loaded, and my springs were weak or sagging, and so I ended up I debated for a couple of years, at least 2 to 3 years, as to what I should do with the springs. If I should go with the rubber block. I like the rubber block idea because there's no airbags to worry about, or inflating, deflating airbags. It's there, reliable. And so I debated between air, rubber, and overload springs, or just a bigger spring leaf pack. And in the end, I chose to go with a bigger leaf. I still have some pictures of the swap, but I chose to go with a bigger leaf pack at Edmonton Spring. They gave me this leaf pack, and it's about an inch thicker in the bottom, and they gave me the U-bolts and everything to bolt it up, and they reassured me that it was just going to bolt right in, no problem, and it did. My jaw dropped when I picked up this leaf pack, like it's monstrous. And so originally the truck is designed for, the leaf springs are good for 2,000 pounds combined. That's about 1 ton combined, and about a half a ton per leaf per side. And then going with this leaf, it's actually meant for a 5500, but it doesn't have the overload springs, and it bolts right up, and it's a 2,000 pound spring. So now I have 4,000 pound combined. That's 2 ton. So what else can I say? So I haven't had anything squat these leaves until this camper. I've had water. I think it was a 10,000 liter water tank on a trailer, and I've had skid steers and mini hose and dirt and you name it, and nothing made these leaves squat. I had a buddy with me went for a drive, and you know, we're log haulers, so we're kind of used to rough roads, and he commented that it was a smooth ride, and considering, and I agreed. A lot of people tend to think that this is a rough ride, but depends on what you get used to. So the reason I talk about all this is this camper is the only thing that's made the leaf spring squat. I don't know how heavy it is. I haven't put it on the scale yet, but it's heavy. The balance point is here, and it's a 6-foot box, and the camper is meant for an 8-foot box. And I'm gonna say the only reason it saves me is because it's a 4-door. Because it's a 4-door, it puts a lot of weight ahead. But the box is supposed to end here. So, and I've seen something similar in a similar truck, and the bumper was almost dragging on the ground, but I don't think it was a 4-door truck, but it was a Chevy. But yeah, I couldn't believe it. So now it sits 4 inches lower than when it's empty, and it's been like this for a couple of years. So I'm eager to see what it looks like after I get this camper off. But it's normally about empty, it rides about 4 inches higher than it does now. And right now the truck is level. It looks a little odd when it's empty, but yeah. So that's that. I think we've covered, I keep saying I think we've covered enough, but yeah. Because, I'm going to close with this, because I emotionally couldn't pull a dipstick, I've chosen to rebuild the motor. So that's that. There you go. Yeah. Now I'm going to keep this truck as a trophy truck. So I might need to think of a name for this truck. Something along the lines of trophy truck, because I'm eager to see what's in the oil pan and why the motor's hasn't budged. So that's that. Thanks. Bye for now.